I mean, I remember when I first got into a Formula One car, I was only able to do 30 laps in a day because my neck gave out. And we pull about 4.5 Gs laterally and over 5 Gs every time we hit the brakes. And if you think with a big helmet on and having the forces so laterally, it's very, very difficult on your neck. But besides having time in the car and in racing categories leading up, it's a lot of endurance training, similar to like a Tour de France rider. For me, I prefer the bike more than running, so I spent most of my hours on that and just keeping yourself in an overall good physical condition.
So what's your resting heartbeat then? Is it something like 45 or something?
I had 39-ish.
Adrian Newey, who designed always the great Williams and the great McLaren cars, was hired as a Red Bull designer, and he's designed a car which Red Bull use and a version of it which Toro Rosso use, which is, I think you described it as like going from an ordinary racing car to a space shuttle or something in terms of the technology, the car you had last year to this year. So there's been a lot of late nights for the mechanics, a lot of learning the car. Tell us a little bit about that struggle.
I tell you, the undertaking for the team was a big one, and I think it was bigger in reality than we expected. For 140 some odd people that we are, it was really a big undertaking, and like you said, the mechanics, I mean, every night they get maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep during the race weekends, and it's just really, really flat out, and we're still even a couple steps back, so it's really definitely a lot of hard work for the guys, but at the end it's definitely a big step forward in the car. It's a real race car. You can feel it driving it. It just needs to be developed a bit and massaged to get the speed out.
Now, how much are you able to learn from what Red Bull are doing? Because, I mean, if you look at their progress, say, in the last month, Coulthard was enormously quick in Bahrain, was unlucky there with reliability. Webber was quick there. And then, obviously, Coulthard had a fantastic run in Barcelona 2 weeks ago. So they're clearly beginning to get hooked up with that car.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's really encouraging to see, and it's also frustrating to see where we are because, we know that that's possible when our development catches up, but yet we're still behind watching, and that's a bit frustrating because we know we're just going to be behind until we eventually, hopefully, catch up one time during the year.
Now, obviously, the big difference between the two cars is, apart from the colour scheme, is that you're using the Ferrari engine and they're using the Renault. How much of a difference does that make?
To be honest, all the engines from Honda to Renault and Ferrari, McLaren, they're all very, very close this year. With the new regulations and the V8s, there's really not much in between the engines. The biggest thing that's difference between the teams is the shifting, and a lot of teams are using a seamless shift, which enables you to shift the gear without losing drive at all. And this is probably the biggest step that we're missing from most of the top teams.
So that's a gearbox that when you shift up from, say, third gear to fourth gear, unlike your road car, you don't have to push the clutch in and change gear. It just, without breaking the power at all, it just finds how the hell does that work?
It's complicated. It's basically 2 gearboxes inside which switch one off from one another. It's very complex, and it's definitely the biggest difference between our two cars and Red Bull, and it's something that makes a huge difference on the track.
Well, Red Bull used it for the first time in a race, I think, in Spain, didn't they? Or was it Bahrain? It was one or the other. And they reckon it was worth 3 to 4 tenths of a second a lap. That isn't lost from not coming off the gas, but losing the drive.
The quickest possible shift you can do. I mean, the cut in Formula One to shift the engine is for sure the quickest out there, and it's amazing to know that even that quickness, if you take away the gears and go seamless, is worth 4 tenths around a lap. It's amazing.
But just imagine if a gear was slightly out.
Yeah, it is very. That's the complicated part, and that's where the reliability comes in. Well, I started racing go-karts when I was 10. I come from a karting background. A very small, very middle-class family in California. My dad raced cars when I was a kid, karts, and I would always follow him around to the kart track. And I raced karts for maybe 10 or 11 years of my life, and then I started racing cars now for I think this is my 6th year. Racing, I did 1 year in America doing a couple sponsorship programs, and then I did 3 years in Europe until I started my F1 career last year. Yeah.
So when you were driving the karts over in the States, was Formula One your focus then, or were you heading for NASCAR or IndyCar, or what were you thinking?
Formula One was always my target. If anyone ever asked me, where do you want to go, I said, I want to go to Formula One. But it was a really ridiculous statement, and it was very unrealistic. I mean, with the means that I had, it was next to impossible, and I knew that. But I always said, I wanted to go there, however hopeless it was. And there was a lot of things that happened in my career that were very lucky, and I was in the right place at the right time many times. And because of all that and hard work, we made it. But it was definitely a long time ago, and to think back to it is a bit special.
You must be very proud of yourself that you pulled it off. It's a fantastic achievement.